Welcome to the Fully Engaged Fitness Podcast, where you'll be hearing from the top fitness experts from the engaged personal training community of businesses. These include client interviews and success stories, insights and tips from our top fitness experts, and the unique approach that we bring to our clients that have helped transform thousands of lives over the last 10 years in business. Don't forget to like and subscribe this podcast so that you can be the first one in the know. Now let's get into this episode.
Okay, welcome to the Fully Engaged Podcast. I am Jeff Schumacher, your host today and co-founder of Engaged Personal Training. I'm joined today by Jenny Friedman. Jenny, thanks for hopping on and joining us today. Before we get rolling, can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, kind of how you got into wellness and nutrition, your experience as a registered dietitian and kind of what you're up to now?
Definitely. So thanks for having me. Yeah, so my name is Jenny Friedman. I'm a registered dietitian. I have kind of dubbed myself a picky eating expert. I'm also an author and I'm a mom of two little boys. So I, really got into this because I like to eat. I love food. I like cooking. I'm like food is a big part of my life. So that was my initial entry into nutrition. And I initially kind of thought, when I was starting in grad school that I wanted to help, raise the next generation of kids who eat well, who can trust their bodies and, just have like these good diets. And it's taken me a long path to get to where I am now. I worked in clinical nutrition for a while and outpatient nutrition in hospitals. While on the side, I was always working, sometimes with adults and mostly with kids and their parents. So I worked with kids with autism, kind of taking the food as medicine approach. Let's see how to really optimize diet to help these kids feel their very best, and quickly saw that there were these very real reasons to why these kids could not eat, a nutritious, balanced diet. And so that got me down the road of kind of what I'll call picky eating, although it's really something more than that. And now I work with kids with these eating challenges, kind of extreme picky eating, who, really struggle to eat a balanced diet. And Jeff, something that I know we'll be talking about is that has a huge impact on the whole family. It takes a big toll on parents. So I happen to enjoy it, and I understand from personal experience in my work what a challenge this can be.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I kind of was stumbled upon your content through one of my friends who's actually a dietitian with kids the same age as my kids, and she sent it to my wife, and we looked at it, and I was like, "This is awesome." I mean, I have a 2-year-old daughter, and so we're kind of like in the thick of like sending her to daycare, and like every week it's like, what are we going to send her? How can we start introducing new foods and all this stuff? So I'm partially, bringing you on for my own selfish reasons, but also to share what you do with our members, because I think it's super cool. And I think it's a really cool niche that you have developed that I don't think many people know is even out there. So with that said, many of our members at our engaged locations are parents. And whenever we talk to them about nutrition and what like a normal week looks like, more often than not, they bring up their struggle with healthy eating, as an entire family. Maybe they make multiple meals for their kids, or they make a different meal for, themselves and their spouse. And by the time they put everything together, the quality of the meals is just not there, because they're trying to make 4 meals, and the quality, obviously, you're kind of sacrificing quality for the time you have. So again, that's another reason why I figured we connect, because I think your content will help our members kind of with some basic steps. So I guess my first question is, where would you tell someone to start, if they wanted to get their family, but namely their kids, on board with a new way of eating, let's just say different than what they're doing right now? Kind of what's the starting point that you recommend for parents?
Yeah, great question. So for this, if there's something, and I work with the families who I work with, we talk about this a lot. you're changing anything about like the mealtime routine or experience, depending on your kid's age, I think it's helpful to kind of give like a heads up, call a family meeting like, hey guys, we're going to be doing things a little bit differently from now on. I know that you are used to me making you mac and cheese every night. I can't do that anymore, so you can let them know what's going to change and also what's staying the same. You will still always have a food that you like at the table. We will still always be eating as a family. You can still always have dessert. You still always get to, say yes or no. I'm never going to make you eat something that you don't like to eat. Lay out all the things that are staying the same and the things that are different. And, the more that you can kind of relate it to them, include them, this is so everybody can feel better, or this is so we all have more time, so you get more screen time at the end of the day, or we can spend more time reading together, or so you just have a happier mommy at the end of the day, like just kind of relating it back to why this is happening, get their input as well, depending on the kid's age. It just, nobody likes to feel like this is all happening to them. And at the end of the day, like, they just want to have a good experience with foods that they like as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's great. And one of the other things that I've seen with your content, namely on Instagram, is changing the approach with some of the traditional things that maybe our parents told us when we were kids, where it's, you can't, dinner's not done till you eat your vegetables, or you can't can't do this until you do this, or, you can't, have this until you do this. And you share some like interesting, if this, then this, that's a little bit more practical to, I think a psychologist would probably say the better approach to do it than our parents did. Are there some easy, like, again, go-to phrases that you use with your clients to help their kids kind of make these decisions when it comes to what they need to eat each night?
Yeah, definitely. So the first thing that, is kind of a commonly accepted way to feed kids these days, it's called the division of responsibility of feeding. I didn't make it, but the idea behind it is that we as parents, or, the providers, the grown-ups, are providing the meal and deciding kind of what we're providing the meal and the structure. So we're saying, dinner is around 6 o'clock. We eat at the table, and this is the menu tonight. I always say that we need to have a preferred food for our kids. It's not fair for them to show up and be expected to eat, something crazy that they don't eat. But then it's up to our kids to decide if they're going to eat and how much they're going to eat. So yeah, a lot of us grew up, you need to finish your broccoli before you have dessert, or you have to take 10 bites, or we have to clear the plate. There are starving children in Africa, and that's not really what we recommend anymore, especially for kids who I work with, who have kind of those more sensitivities with foods. Instead, like, it's up to them. They know their body. They can decide if they need more food, not more food. You can have them check in, like, how's your body doing? Where are you feeling full? Is there a full feeling? Kitchen is closed after this, so make sure you're done eating. Those sorts of things to kind of put the agency in them and to get them, to give them like some control and say, give them choices whenever possible, and keep them the same. You're not asking, do you want cookies or broccoli? Because we know what they're going to pick, but do you want broccoli or string beans tonight? Do you want the green apple or the red apple? Kind of giving them two like equivalent choices to pick from is really helpful. And any sort of involvement that our kids can have, whether it's setting the table, helping with the menu. My son, who's also 2-ish, likes to put out the placemats sometimes, and they are, it's not a good placemat job, but he feels like he's excited to come to the table with us. So that is a good a good help. Having kids serve also at the table, like kind of do family style, and they can take the big spoon and put it on their own plate, can be something that's fun for really a lot of ages of kids, a pretty wide age range there.
Yeah, just making them part of the decision-making process and like, the steps. I think that's cool. Another thing, that I know I fall victim to, and we hear from our members all the time, is that we kind of just get stuck in a pattern of like safe foods or easy foods or whatever, and kind of just get stuck in this rut where you're eating the same things every night or every week. Like, how would you recommend, introducing, now that, you've gone over steps of, here's how we're going to change, the structure of our meals. Here's how we can get you involved in our meals. How would you change, like, introducing a new food? Is there a strategy, instead of like, changing everything at once? Is there a strategy to kind of like layer in new foods, to kind of build on that, to create like a more diverse palette?
Totally. And to go back, serving the same thing over and over, not a problem. And like I get there, I feel like we all have this thing of like, oh, it's the same stuff, or I don't know what to make. But one of the strategies that I recommend actually is kind of having these like core meals that you can go to, have 10 of them. So you've got 2 weeks worth. You can always veer from that. But kind of having this core and kind of knowing, just knowing what you're doing and how to add on for that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's really helpful. But when we are introducing new foods, I mean, so many ways. But yeah, start small. Maybe a whole meal isn't the best way. You put an entirely new meal on your kid's plate. That can be really overwhelming. If there's one new food for them on their plate or at the table, that can be more approachable. But there's, a ton of ways. So getting them involved in, again, the cooking process, like, oh, broccoli is a new food for us. Okay. Hey, come help me chop this. Just asking them about, kind of what they notice, sparking some conversation. You can use descriptive words to describe, the broccoli, the food that you're seeing. Invite them, what do you notice about this food? Tell me how that's looking for you. How does this feel in your hands? It feels really this way in mine. These open-ended questions can be a good way to just like break the ice sort of for these foods. And then we can think about, really when you're at the table, what are you going to do? You can continue that conversation, for, kids who are a little bit older, like, oh, I wonder, where the broccoli grew up and how it got here to this plate. You're not asking them to eat it. You're not requiring the bite, but often just sparking that conversation. You also, can't underestimate the power of role modeling, and sometimes of not offering food. Like my son just got home from school, and asked what I was doing. I said, I'm finishing up lunch and I had some hummus and sugar snap peas. And he immediately, I want them. I want a dip. Where, and just me having it, he, was enough for him to want it. And that's amazing. So sometimes you can just model it yourself. You don't even have to offer. And even you're not offering sort of the thing that's like, ooh, this is off the table. Everybody else is having that. That sounds great. Like, can't I have some? So all of those, and there's so much more. I could talk about this for days, but those
I'm sure.
start with some really good basics, and the foundation of all of this, or the kind of the thing unifying all of this, is that we are like putting it in their hands. The choice is up to them. We're not pressuring, we're not requiring, we're kind of setting them up for success and boosting their curiosity, but we're not, it's not top down. It's really coming from them.
Right. I love that. I love that approach, because it's not, you're kind of teaching them, here's why we're making these decisions, and here's how this food, I don't know if you would go as far as like, here's how this food impacts us versus this food. This gives us more energy versus this, but it's not that top-down approach of, we're doing it because I said so. It's like, we're doing this because this food is, gives us energy, help us, it makes you, your brain function better or whatever. I think that's a really cool approach. And it almost, for our adult clients, it almost helps them kind of reiterate why they are, eating this food too, so that was cool.
Yeah, and that's a whole thing that you can do too. Like, hey, like mommy's been going to the gym, daddy's been, working out. We want the whole family to be really healthy, have more energy. We're looking forward to summer and we're going to be running around and playing. We want to have energy. So, and that's like a good way to, we're all in this together, and that feels nice for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So another concern, not concern, but another like roadblock a lot of times is snacking, right? Always being on the go. A lot of our members have kids that are of like the age where they're playing travel sports, or they're doing like a ton of activities after school. They're just always on the go. Is there anything, and this is probably multiple questions here, but as far as like snacks on the go, any simple ingredients that you would look for, or any like tips on how to identify what is considered like a go-to healthy alternative when families are on the move or on the go?
Yeah. So, a snack, it's confusing because it sounds really different from a meal. But when we are thinking about something that is, when you think about the purpose of a snack, you kind of think of two reasons. One is like a fun snack, and the other is like a nutritive snack. It's filling our bellies. There's room for both. But I feel like, kids who are on the go and they're in sports, and when they really need a snack, they need something that's filling their bodies. And then I want you to think of it the same way you would a meal. It should be balanced with protein, fat, fiber, as much of those as you can get, maybe something green or a fruit or a vegetable. That is perfect. So, if you need a filling snack, like a sandwich is a great thing to do, half a sandwich, whole sandwich, depending how old your kids are. But if and kind of moving away from that idea that a snack needs to be something that comes in a package and like it's kind of a fun food, there's again certainly room for that, and those are great, but we don't, that's not the only type of snack that exists. And it's personal to some extent for everybody. I tend to look at protein, fiber, and sugar. I don't want a ton of added sugar. I look at the ingredients. I don't want a ton of ingredients. I especially don't want ones that are like funky that you can't name, that like maybe shouldn't be in there. I'm big on the sugar. So,
Hmm.
personally, my family, like, are the first three ingredients sugar? I don't want it. And when we instead are focusing on like protein, fat, and fiber, those are foods that will fill us and take us a little bit further.
Yeah, that's great. And sticking with that, meal structure, um, can you kind of go through a little bit of a breakdown of maybe some options for like a breakfast and a lunch that are more in line with a meal that has protein, that has fiber, versus for breakfast we have cereal, and for lunch we have a sandwich, and for this we talk with our members about how to prioritize the proteins and how to prioritize healthy fats, and how to minimize processed sugars and processed carbs and everything like that. For a child, how do we kind of incorporate that, when maybe they're used to just having cereal for breakfast? How, what's a structure that you would lay out for a breakfast and lunch?
Yeah. So, same sort of thing. And it's really up to us to provide, to put that out there for them. And again, it doesn't have to be changing what they're having. It can just even be an addition, and you can start to even kind of wean some things away, like offer the egg and the full cereal is there, and then slowly change it up. Cereal is not a terrible breakfast. You do want to be looking at the sugar content and, fiber too. Like kids cereals, or everybody's cereals, are full of sugar. You can always mix, like some Cheerios with some Fruit Loops, and then you're, balancing it out a little bit. Um, and I struggle with this because I feel like all we eat is cheese and peanut butter and eggs, but
Yeah.
those are three good ones that you can have at breakfast. Yogurt is great. Even a glass of milk is a wonderful thing. They're getting some protein there, and that's perfect. Um, and kids do, like, there's, nothing wrong with carbs, especially for kids. It fills your belly, and is really satisfying. So they need that too. Sandwiches, yogurts, those are really good usually kid friendly options. You can even think, okay, my kid won't eat a sandwich. Will they eat pancakes with some peanut butter maybe, or like peanut butter on the side? Um, peanut butter, if it's from like a fun, like a little packet, that might be a little bit more fun. So,
Hmm.
kind of getting creative and going with what your child likes, but
Yeah,
always, if you can, getting those in, and adding.
right. Those are good strategies. And something that we tried is, there's a lot of applesauce that gets eaten in our house, and we've tried to add like flax seeds into the applesauce, and kind of, I love what you said, is like mixing the Fruit Loops with Cheerios, or some kind of plain cereal, where you can kind of, you're not removing, right? You're just kind of incorporating a different um, variety as well. Is there any other like go-to subs like that you advocate for people? I mean, the cereal one was really good. Anything else that people can put into action, with what their kids are already eating?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, pasta is a good one where you can do that with. You can mix in, even sauces or like mac and cheese, you can boost those. You can boost some sauces. You might want to be upfront about it. Some kids will really have a hard time if they know that you've like quote unquote ruined their, their favorite food. But sauces are a great way where you can incorporate, a little bit of meat, a little bit of protein. Some people like to cook their pastas in bone broth, something like that, or, cooking oatmeal and milk. Chia seeds are a good one. And yeah, like a ground chia, ground flax, that stuff can be really great and like not too conspicuous. So you want to think about things like that. Mixing. I have a lot of families who the kids eat Nutella, so we can slowly work some peanut butter in there. Smoothies are a good opportunity if your kid's eating that, where you can stuff in. We make popsicles a lot here, so it's basically a smoothie. But you can make it into an ice pop, and that, is really fun. And it's just, you can throw in veggies, you can throw in the chia seeds, the, peanut butter, healthy fats, avocado in there too. So there's a lot of options.
That's great. I think kind of wrapping this up and putting a bow on it, is and we talked about some tips in the beginning, but kind of in order to put this stuff in action, we talk a lot with our members about meal prepping and kind of prepping for the week. Are there any tips that you could share with people to kind of get the ball rolling on this stuff? Any actionable things that they could start as soon as next week?
Yeah, I mean, it is, and I struggle with this like big time. We've got a 3-month-old here and the 2-year-old, like everybody needs to go to bed and eat at the same time, and it's chaos. So I'm big on being gentle with yourself and starting one little thing at a time. But I think, if you've got a family meal and you feel like you're making several, I want you to take a step back and kind of break things down. Everybody doesn't need to have their most favorite, special, wonderful food every single meal. And kind of think, okay, we've got like a core meal, we've got a pasta, or we've got a chicken, it's like, I kind of think if you can put it in buckets of themes, it's Italian night. So maybe you're having, a protein, some veggies, and then because it's Italian night, you've got pasta on the side. It's plain. There's red sauce. There's whatever, kind of mixing and matching little pieces. It's soup night, and there's a little something for everybody there, even if it's just bread for your kids or, plain little something on the side. So you can really think about this core meal that's going to make you feel good, and then how you can incorporate some, sides and little things for your kids or the rest of the family. That's how I like to think about it. It's not super, super quick. None of this is. If it were super quick and easy, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But, sometimes just getting a new way to think about it can give you some new ideas and a renewed, energy for it.
Right. I think that's a good point. It's not this. None of this is going to happen quickly. You're going to obviously get pushback, and it's going to be something that is going to take some practice. So I'll kind of end with a couple just random questions. I always ask people just kind of get to know you a little bit more. When you're driving to work or going anywhere, you listen to music, or you listen to a podcast?
Oof, I never drive anymore. I live in the city. And I work.
Nice.
I do a lot of podcasts. I've become a podcast girl. In the car, I always have to have something. I need noise, but walking around, even just in the house, I do a lot of podcasts and audiobooks these days.
Yeah, awesome. You touched on books. What are you reading? What are you listening to right now?
Oh, I never remember. Okay, so I just started like my fun nighttime book is Book Lovers. It's been like I've resisted for a long time. It's been a big
Okay.
What am I listening to? This is a good one. It is called, I think it's 167 Hours. It's an old book, but it is about kind of time management stuff. 168, because that's how many hours. So it's 168 hours by, I think her name is Laura Vanderkam. I'm listening to this for the second time, and it's a good read about kind of time and prioritizing the things that are important to us and fitting them all in.
That's cool. Do you consume a lot of like professional development and personal development
I,
books?
yes.
Yeah. That's kind of my go-to as well. And last one, you're obviously a big reader, so maybe you might not have a recommendation here, but any TV recommendations? Anything you're watching?
Yes, we just started. This is good because usually it's no. We just started Shrinking with what's his name? He's tall. Um I don't even know what it's on.
I
Maybe
haven't
Apple.
heard of
It's good. What's this guy's name?
that.
I can't think of it now, but it's called Shrinking. It's like a fun show, and it's the first one.
Jason Segel.
Thank you, Jason Segel. He's tall.
Okay. Yes, he is.
Yeah, it's a
All
cool.
right. Cool. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. If people wanted to find out more about you, how could they find you? How can they buy your book? What can they do to learn more?
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram. It's at Feeding Picky Eaters. My website, will keep it simple, is feedingpickyeaters.com. We also have my book there as well. It's available everywhere that books are sold. It is called Stories of Extreme Picky Eating. So it's about these kiddos who I work with, and about everybody. So there's something for, feeding the whole family in there too. So yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. And can families work with you? How do you work as far as
Yeah, so I do. I have 2 online programs, which is really wonderful because you get this like wonderful community component. So I have one for bigger kids and one for little kids. The toddler program for little kids will be opening up in April, or May actually, so soon. I do also work with some families one-on-one in a VIP coaching program.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, Jenny, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And this was great. I know for me, selfishly, I learned a lot that I'm going to put into action tonight at dinner.
Can't wait. Keep me posted.
All right. Thanks. See ya.